Be still and know. Be still and know. Your job is to be still and listen in here. Listen to your own soul.
You're listening to Inspire Me with Jay, where science meets spirit and stories of meditation and the near-death experience awaken what's possible within us all. I'm Jay, and this is your moment to be inspired. Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay. I have a guest today, Winston. Why don't you tell us about yourself?
Well, that's a long story. The first thing I needed to do this lifetime was to rise above religion. And so in order to approach that, I made the choice of being incarnating into a family that was in church all the time, or most of the time. So that gave me an opportunity to see it up close, and that's what I needed. So I was able to see what was occurring there, and so I could see what it was I needed to rise above. And so I did, culminating at me starting at the School of Metaphysics at the age of 42. I was able to rise above religion, and I did so in stages all through the previous 42 years. That's the start. I mean, and of course, when I set foot in the School of Metaphysics, my life changed. And here I am. And what I'm doing...
what does it mean?
I'm sorry?
I was just going to say, what does it mean to rise above religion?
Religion is a trap to keep people embedded in the seventh level consciousness only. That's the purpose that it serves. And so to really get very far deep into yourself, religion, that didn't work for me. So what worked for me is when I found the School of Metaphysics, and I did exactly what Jesus said to do. I asked. I had questions. I asked. And the questions I had all along, or that developed in me, the questions I had were not something addressed in the school or church. But the School of Metaphysics answered all my questions and showed me how to get answers to any more. So I appreciate school every day because it's what I had to have. But I found it by following Jesus's instructions. And from what I see, most people don't understand most of what he said. So in order to go very deep into the self, one has to get above religion. I did. That was necessary for me.
So what were the questions you were asking?
I'm sorry?
What was the questions you were asking?
This was all going on within me. I didn't speak to anybody. But I was observing. I was sitting in the back row of the church, and I was observing. And I can remember about 11 years old, I was observing, taking it all in. And I said, these people seem to have lost track of God. I said, what's going on here? And my next question to myself, I said, well, where is God? Well, the answer was immediate, no lap time at all. And mentally, I was pointing above my head. And I knew that was correct, but I didn't understand what it meant until I got to School of Metaphysics. It was pointing at I am. And so I am is the light that everything is made from. And the light within each one of us is the I am. I am is the light within each one of us. And so from light formed the superconscious mind, which is the heaven portion of each one of us. Heaven is not a place you die and go to. It's a consciousness you pull forward that's been embedded in you, all of us, for all time. So to look anywhere else but in here to get acquainted with yourself is a waste of time, as I see it. Does that make any sense? And after the superconscious mind, which is the heaven portion, created the conscious mind and the subconscious mind to work in unison. And it is in working, the conscious mind working with the subconscious mind, that causes one to connect with what is above. And we worked through the different levels, starting with, there's 7 levels of mind. So all of the information, it's embedded, we inherited all of this, is embedded in the first level of consciousness. And that has the balance of aggressive and receptive principles. It has the schematic, or the blueprint for each of us as whole and complete. That's in the first level of mind in everyone, including Jesus. Now see, the thing that I understand that most people may not is that Jesus was not talking about himself. When he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, no one gets to the Father but by me, he was not talking about himself. He was talking about, I am the center of each one of us. Is this different than what you've come to learn?
Well, I think I understand what you're saying. You're saying essentially God is within us and we are all part of God and we are part of one, connected to each other. Is that in essence what you're saying?
Yes. And to add to that, each one of us is an individual expression of God. We're not separate. In fact, I do a talk on YouTube, and We're Valuable Media on Facebook. But on YouTube, the talk I did this week was about that separation. I call it the big lie. That was my talk this week, and it's on my YouTube channel. Is YouTube at that little funny sign, YouTube at The Next Step, Winston Cunningham. And I have so far 104 different talks, different links. Most of them average about 20 minutes. So when I decide what I want to talk about, like separation, I just write the one word or the few words. And when I turn this thing on, and I'm just learning how to work this gizmo, even though I've been at this for a little while, I just look at the subject and I start talking, and I'm pulling from within. And this incorporates what I understand at this point, plus what I've understood from previous lifetimes that is stored in my soul. And at this time, sometimes I pull things forward from back in the last few years. I pull things forward that I didn't learn this lifetime. So I know it was learned in a previous lifetime. And each lifetime, at the end, everything that you go through an assimilation process, once you withdraw from this physical body, go through an assimilation process, and you gather all the understandings from this lifetime, and they're stored in the soul. Now, when you check in the next time, you don't automatically see that. I think if we had the capability of seeing it right off the bat, it would be too much. So each lifetime, a person has to wake up all over again. Now, it does happen that some people kind of come in awake, depending on the parents they've chosen. If their parents are awake enough, then they won't put the child to sleep like most people do. But the child is put to sleep usually. By the time the child is 7 years old and begins to think on their own, they've already absorbed all of the good, bad, and ugly from their parents. And unfortunately, A lot of people go forward and never question what they've absorbed, and don't even know that they've been absorbing things because everybody else is asleep too. And at this point in our existence, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, well, it seems like the truth is embedded in religion, in the different religions. It's this, because it's like, Jesus taught the kingdom of heaven is within you, and, stuff like that. But it
Yeah.
sort of there's a lot of distractions that goes on in religion that
Yes,
kind of
that's
like
what I'm talking
distracts
about.
you. Like then
So,
the other ideas start coming in. Yeah.
yeah, the distractions. And one of my talks on my YouTube channel is that you're distracted or growing. So Jesus made a fine distinction between that. You cannot serve God and mammon simultaneously. You will choose one or the other. And I've come to understand that each thought goes one way or the other. It's that fine-tuned. Each thought. In fact, Jesus said, every hair on your head is counted. The hair represents conscious thought in language of mind. Are you familiar with language of mind?
No, I haven't heard that term before.
Oh, really? Oh, I was thinking that you and Terence Lamont were acquainted and you probably had some exposure at School of Metaphysics. I didn't know.
Oh, yeah, I interviewed him. I don't remember that phrase. He may have said it. Language of mind. I just don't remember that.
Oh, the language. Well, let me suggest this. And every Wednesday night, well, actually, today's Wednesday, right? No, tomorrow.
No, it's Tuesday.
Tomorrow night at 6:30 Central Time. That would be 7 your time, I guess. Go to dreamschool.org, and there's one of the branch schools, School of Metaphysics. One of the branches does a dream webinar each Wednesday night at 6:30 for an hour, and they're interpreting dreams in this language of mind. So you can go register and just watch, or you can participate, share a dream, whatever you want. But this is part of what's taught at School of Metaphysics. So I was exposed to this language of mind, and here's the kicker: all of the scriptures, major scriptures, were written in language of mind. But there's been so much focus put on the words, and that's a total misunderstanding, because God's word means breath. And the breath that comes in through the mouth of God is medulla oblongata. That's where the energy enters into the system. And about halfway through the beginning series at School of Metaphysics, we taught how to begin to pull extra energy into that. So I've been practicing this for the last 40 years. And as a result, I'm not aging as fast as other people my age. That's just the reality. And it's because I took the time to find out rather than just let stuff germinate. And I think I'm thankful for the School of Metaphysics every day, because it's what I not only needed, it's what I had to have. And I recognized that. And another of my talks is the question. And I think the question is the most important thing, because once you have a key question in front of you, when you ask it sincerely within, it's your own soul that guides you to the answer through an experience, or create an experience, or guide you to an experience. I discovered this pretty early on in my studies at School of Metaphysics. And I've been practicing this stuff for the last 40 years, and I'm gaining more ground now than ever before. And it's I'm like where I am.
So how do you create this experience?
How do I what?
How do you create the experience? Is it something like through meditation?
Oh no, well, yes, but experience is created by each person on this planet. Now, whether they're aware of it or not is immaterial. Your thoughts dictate your experience because it is your intention, not the act itself, but the intention behind the act that sets into motion what you will experience. That's universal law. That's the universal principle. Everybody experiences that. And most people walking the planet are just oblivious to the whole thing. And religion is largely responsible because it absolves them of any responsibility. And that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. It is now, but I grew up in this stuff. And most of the planet is still operating off of belief. And the School of Metaphysics teaches you how to go from believing into knowing. Just like Jesus replaced the one that introduced him, John the Baptist. John the Baptist was good with the belief, but there needed to be more. And so the knowing quality is what Jesus introduced. But you don't hear that talked about in religion. They focus on belief.
Well, it's sort of like, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Right. I was going to say, well, that's sort of like what Carl Jung talked about. He had like a near-death experience, and he said, someone asked him, well, do you believe in God? He said, I don't believe in God. I simply know God.
Yes.
Because it's like, you wouldn't say, well, I believe in my mother. Well, it's like I know my mother. I don't need to say I believe in my mother. Right. It's just I know
if you'll go to my YouTube channel, YouTube at the Next Step, Winston Cunningham, there's one of the things I really like about this channel is that if I find a video I like, I'll just press on it and it shows up on a list. It shows up on my list of videos I liked. And what we were just talking about, this was covered by Einstein. I can't think of the guy's name. Tesla, Edgar Casey, on and on. There's this same theme, and it excites me when I see one of these is because the same thing I've come to, these people, a whole lot smaller than I am, actually came to the same conclusion. They came from a different direction, but that doesn't matter. See, everybody is unique. No two people are alike, and everybody is on the same path. How they get there, how long it takes, is subjective. It depends on each person, and each person has their own path, and there's no two people are in the same place in their progression toward this understanding of the total self. And I don't know who God is or what he is. I've got some ideas, but until I get acquainted with myself, I won't be qualified to recognize him. And I won't know him for sure or hear or whatever it is until I'm looking face to face with it. But I'm not there yet. I'm getting there. But it's going to take a couple of days.
So, like, what kind of practices do you do to get, in that way of thinking?
Well, I spent the last 40 years meditating. Well, there's a variety of exercises, and they all come from the School of Metaphysics. It starts with concentration, using undivided attention, and you're holding undivided attention for longer periods of time is called concentration. And there are exercises that you learn to develop your ability to focus. And so it goes, and this is supporting what Jesus said, if thine eye be single, the body will be full of light. Light represents awareness. And it's produced through your own focus. When you're looking intently at one thing, you're not seeing everything else. But most people are distracted. That's why I did the talk on distracted or growing. Because I go to the YMCA every day and there's people wearing their distraction on their head. They come here to work out, but they can't work out unless they got got their distractions. I did another talk on addictions. They're wearing their addictions, and religion is the biggest addiction there is. But it's going to be replaced by AI eventually. That's where that's headed. But AI has some good things. In fact, Dr. Barbara Condon, who wrote the Dreamer's Dictionary, she has just implemented, and I forget the name of it, she called it, but I was surprised to see this because she had actually used AI to create an online available dream interpretation apparatus that uses AI. And this lady, now I don't like AI, but I trust Barbara because I know her. And she was a doctor at the school, and I got a whole lot from this lady, and I still do. She's amazing woman. But I forget what she called this stream, but you can find her. She has a site that I check in on. It's called I Love You Just Because You Are. That's the title. And she puts something different every day on there. And I don't visit it every day, but I like to, I've kind of pay attention. If I'm drawn to something she's saying, there'll be a reason for it. And this is part of the way your own soul creates your experience. It draws your attention towards something. Have you ever been in a store, like a bookstore, and for no reason at all said, hey, I need to look at this? It comes from within. That's your soul talking. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you'll have a book just fall off the shelf almost. And it seemed like I need to be reading this. But that's your own soul guiding you. And this guidance is available to everyone. And when I was growing up in church, I heard him talking about soul all the time. But in retrospect, I really don't think any of them knew what a soul is. But it's the other part of you. And most people are just not paying attention to the other part of themselves. Everything you need is already in here. And we're finding out, the experience allows us to find out a little bit, because every experience is about giving you more information about your own self. And I'm told there's 144,000 different pieces to that. And I don't know, I haven't tried to count, because I know I'm a couple of days away from it myself. If you go to the Dreamers webinar on Wednesday night, but tomorrow night will be good if you can do that, and invest an hour a week to get acquainted with language of mind. It was when, of course, we started out doing concentration exercise and meditation and so forth as we progressed in the lessons in the school, and I don't want to get ahead of myself here. I'll never forget now, it may be a different number now, but the lesson 7 was one that spelled out, you are responsible. It pretty much spelled that out. And you could almost hear people running for the door. You know, that lesson gets rid of about half the people that don't need to be there, that are there out of curiosity. That's not enough. If you're not serious about learning about yourself, then School of Metaphysics ain't the place for you. Because before very long, you'll every time you turn around, somebody's speaking your thoughts out loud. Your thoughts. I've seen the doctors. It's neat to be around some of the doctors. Now, the doctor has completed the program and has experienced in all 7 levels of mind, and that takes some doing. And I got a ways into the advanced series, and so I'm acquainted with the soul part. there's superconscious mind above that. And so the doctrine, I can't count the number of times I was witness to a doctor would just be listening to somebody talk, mill around the school. And by the time they get ready to leave, the doctor would give a one-liner and knees would buckle. That's how powerful it can be when somebody speaks the truth that you're ignoring, that you're not seeing yourself, but you recognize it when you hear it and you don't like it. So the School of Metaphysics is a way for people who are serious to develop themselves. And anybody, it's available to anybody, but most people are just not going to do it because religion is easy. It excuses them from all responsibility. Oh, you can't help it. Well, that's bull. You're the only one that can. In other words, that's and about halfway through the beginning series, I was introduced to the recharge exercises. It's preceded by a few lessons, getting acquainted with the energy, and a few exercises like tensing and relaxing before you get out of bed, to get everything moving. But it's a series of 38 exercises involving tensing and relaxing and directing energy from the mouth of God into each part of the body, which adds energy to the body. I can, and I early on, by the time I started to teach at School of Metaphysics, which is part of the deal, everybody has to learn to teach or they don't get very far. About the time I was starting to teach, by that time I had gained the confidence of knowing that, and this is a talk I did on the sound of light, and you can look it up if you want. But this is how I became acquainted with it. When I started to hear this sound of light, simultaneously, I would feel every cell in my body come alive. And because of this, I knew what Jesus was talking about when he said the body will be full of light, because it's not only figuratively true, it's literally true, but you don't know about it until you practice. And the School of Metaphysics introduces the practices, not just theory. They teach applied metaphysics, not theory. Because theory I had already. And nobody knew how to explain it past theory because they didn't have the experience. But Jesus was teaching about the experience. If you just go back and read all of the words that Jesus said, and this time, instead of looking at it the way religion wanted you to, look at it as if he's talking, not talking about himself. Then you'll begin to see it a little bit differently. He's talking about I am, which is the core of each one of us, not just him, including him. But see, the thing is that there's no difference between you and I and Jesus, except he's finished this program already. That you will finish and I will finish. Now, how long it takes us, it's subjective. And it doesn't matter to me. Well, I'd like to see everybody do it quicker. But I mean, there's a lot of people that have done amazing work a lot quicker. Now, Terrence Lamont, you interviewed him. Now, he's much farther in the lessons than what I got to. So he's got a lot of information that I didn't come to at the school anyway. And so he's doing some amazing things. And of course, I don't know if I saw your interview on him. I'd like to see that. But he's doing some amazing work. And it's him that he's the peace ambassador for the School of Metaphysics, and it's his responsibility to see that the Universal Peace Covenant is read out loud every morning at 7:30 Central Time on Zoom. But somebody is inside this peace dome that was built on the College of Metaphysics property. Now somebody's inside that building every morning reading this Universal Peace Covenant out loud. And they're about 2,500 days now consecutive. doing it every day. And this is something anybody on this planet can check into, can plug into and benefit from. Get your attention away from talking about wars and all this crap. Get your attention on creating peace. I like peace. People talk about guns. I've never owned a gun, I never wanted one. I never needed one, and I still don't. Because I don't hang out in the place people normally need one. I hang out if a situation I get myself into is not very peaceful, I won't be there very long. And that includes by myself. But I don't allow too much lack of peace happening in here. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, have you kind of gotten to the point where you don't really like to watch TV news or watch a lot of TV shows and things like that? Because sometimes it's like I don't really watch corporate media news anymore. I just don't see any value in it.
Well, I like to see one newscast a day. That's plenty. And sometimes I don't get to that. But all the time I was studying at the School of Metaphysics, I did not watch TV at all, because I was busy. And at the same time, you might like this. Anybody who's got some extra weight can benefit from it. I wrote one of my talks is about the weight principle, and I come to this through my own experience at the School of Metaphysics, because I lost weight and I wasn't trying to lose weight. So I had to give some thought to how this happened, and I figured it out, because I was using all the energy I was taking in. It's quite simple. Now, when you're not using the energy toward getting something you want, then the energy that is available for you to use that's not being used is stored in your body as fat. That's the whole story. That's as far as a person needs to go if they need to lose weight. Just get busy going after what you said you didn't think you could have. Just go get it. Because anybody can have anything they want. This is taught at School of Metaphysics, and they teach you how. And and I'm still learning it. I'm still hearing the words of some of the lessons I heard over and over. In fact, the lessons were, we read out loud. The lesson we were on, we read it out loud every day of the week, out loud. Not for 7 days, not 5 days. This is an everyday thing. Of course, if you become a student at the College of Metaphysics, then that's 24/7. And my teacher, Nancy Hayek, had told me about those experiences, or some of them anyway. And of course, I was fortunate enough to meet the guy that started this whole thing, Jerry Rothmel. He didn't want to take credit for it. When I was complimenting him on what he put together, and he said, "Hey, I haven't had an original idea in my life." But one thing I found in common with all the students I met, fellow students I met at the college, at the School of Metaphysics, the thing they had in common is that each one of us had figured out there's more. There's more than what we've been told. I know there's more. So everybody's asking, well, what is it? Where is it? And they find themselves at the School of Metaphysics, like me. That's why I was there, because that's where the information was that I needed. I had to have. And religion and school didn't do it. It was the School of Metaphysics. Now, the School of Metaphysics is not being overrun by students. And when you consider what's offered there, it's amazing that so few people see it. But most people are drowning in religion. And I say drowning. Because it is in realizing your responsibility and doing something with that causes you to move ahead in your understanding. But if you don't even believe that, then you're going along with the crowd. And that's the first, whenever I'm trying to help somebody, the first thing I'll tell them is to beware of the consensus of opinion. And they get a lot of this consensus of opinion through TV, we was talking about a minute ago. I do watch a little bit of TV, but I can't get interested like I was at one time. If I really want to kind of chill out and watch a little something, I'll just flick around until I find something interesting to me. Now the channel I wind up on most, and I don't have cable or anything, I get whatever comes through there. And the story channel is something I've got a lot out of. There's always something, there's usually something interesting there, historical things and how this works, how that works, or how that don't work. So all that kind of stuff. But there's the School of Metaphysics now. Halfway through the beginning series, I started the recharge exercise, and that changed my life right there, because you start producing energy more so than, well, it'll not be more than you need because you're at School of Metaphysics, you're teaching. And I was still directing the school in Memphis. I started at Nashville and went to Memphis. And I was still directing the school out there. And I'd been doing recharge every day. And I had a use for this energy. But when I dropped out of school and finished my studies, or at least I quit. And I didn't know why for a good while. But I was able to finally admit that I stayed long enough to get what I needed to finish what I needed to do this lifetime. And so I wasn't trying to keep up with anybody else. And people like Terrence are they've been there for a long time, and they just keep doing some good work. And I wasn't quite there, but I'm doing what I need to do, and I'm working on now. I'm downloading what I need to approach the fourth major life cycle. 28 years is its major life cycle, and I'll be starting my fourth one. And I plan 5 altogether, which will take me to 140. And one of my talks is getting old is a choice. And it is. Most people don't have a clue about that, because people my age have kind of hanging up the towel and easing on out. But I'm just getting started. So it depends. And everyone can start. Every day sometimes feels like starting over. And I've started over so many times I can't count them. But I've learned to accept that. It's okay. But halfway through the beginning series, I started the recharge exercises. And then toward the end of the beginning series, which ends at lesson 25, they've changed that now. It used to be 3-tier, now it's 4-tier. But I don't know how it's broken down. So I started learning about Hong Sau. That's HONGSAU. And this is a higher form of concentration. And we introduced that after we've spent a good while building concentration. So now, and once you build concentration and start adding to it with different techniques, just get stronger. And it corresponds with, well, for instance, there was a memory exercise that I was assigned. And I won't go through the whole routine, but it takes, the first time I did the exercise, it took me 13.5 minutes. And the assignment was to keep doing it until you could do it in 10 seconds. And that took me 2 full years doing it once a day. when I was able to do it in 10 seconds, it was just in time for me to get the lesson to where I needed to do this routine before I could do this new thing that was introduced. So everything, one thing builds on another. And we're guilty sometimes, and most people are guilty many times, of wanting to know everything before they begin. Well, that's not the way it's set up. You learn as you need to know. In fact, one of my talks was, we're on a mission, and we get information on a need-to-know basis. When I need to know it, my own soul will give it to me. If I'm paying attention, my job is to be still and know that I am God. Not believe. Be still and know. Those words are different. Presents a different picture. In fact, your language of mine is the picture language, and it was the original writings of the Bible or whatever religious, spiritual work there is. The original intention was so that you would have a picture to work with. But people are getting caught up in the words, and they're arguing over this word or that word, and they're just wasting time, spinning the wheels, not getting anywhere. Have I said too much?
Is there a place for prayer in what you do? Well, no, I was going to say, is there a place for prayer in what you do?
Prayer is the first part of meditation. It is the aggressive part. It is prayer is nothing more or less than you're stating your intention. And that's the aggressive, and the receptive part is when you just shut up and listen. That's meditation. So prayer, yes, prayer is very much a part. It's the aggressive part, and there's a balance of aggressive and receptive principles embedded in our own superconscious mind. That's the first level of mind. And we see that played out. And my dreams will tell me sometime if I need to be more balanced here. And that my dreams come from my soul too. Everything comes from my soul, because that's where everything is. And to try to find it out here, no. This out here is just a reflection of what's in here. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I grew up in church, I heard people praying all the time. But now I can see that was clearly just begging, because they didn't understand what Jesus was talking about, really didn't. They pretended to, but pretense don't get you very far. It may get you a good salary in Hollywood. I may have got off track here.
Well, does a lot of what you're saying go to the law of attraction? You put your thought or intention towards something and draw it towards you.
I went with a friend of mine who was impressed with this movie, The Secret you're referring to. And I was surprised that the whole thing was presenting the law of attraction as if it was the only law. It's just one law. There are many. So anytime you find, now religion is bad about doing this, just do this thing, one thing, and then you're home free. Well, they're talking about a little part. There's a whole bunch to take in. But anybody that says, just come on, follow me, you'll be home free. Now, I don't want people following me. What I encourage you, if you listen to my talks, you'll see what I encourage people to do is follow what is in here. And the only way you can connect with that is pay attention. put your attention in here, not out here or up there or down there. It's in here. That's where everything is. And everybody on the planet, and then some, I guess, everybody has this within them. But most people are oblivious to it because of religion. Now, a person chooses that religion, like even though my family took me to, it was Southern Baptist. That's the one I was involved in. But a lot of them, one thing, I go to the YMCA every day, and there's people from all over the world. So I've compared notes with different people from different, and it's not the culture, that's not the religion that makes the culture, it's the culture that makes the religion. And I'm talking to a guy that grew up in Islam, and he had the same misgivings I did when I met in the Baptist church, because they've got your attention diffused, they've got your attention diverted into something that doesn't matter. Because they didn't know how to tell him what really did matter. And I know what matters because I've been practicing it the last 40 years. The key word is practice. Now, the practice is the number 6, which represents service to yourself and others, intuition, and practice. Now, just think about the word practice. So as I practice in the conscious mind, and in the subconscious mind, and finally as I progress into the superconscious mind, when I practice all, you add the 3 6s together, that's 18. Add the 8 and 1 together is 9. That means completion. That's what that phrase means. But and another talk I did about appeasing limitations is, instead of stretching into doing what it takes to become aware enough, conscious enough to see something on a bigger scale or finer within. Instead of doing that, we get sidetracked into what seems to matter that don't, as much as putting your attention in here. Now, I may not have finished the thought like I first intended there, but if you listen to my talks, you'll see what I emphasize. I don't want people following me. I want them to look in here, because their own soul will guide them to a place, and it may be different. I was guided to the School of Metaphysics, but it may be different for somebody else, because everybody's in a different place. But I know this for sure. The soul inside each person will guide that person to what they need to pay attention to. There's no doubt that, because I proved that through my own experience. And that's true for anyone, anytime, any place. That's what the meaning of universal law is. It's true for everyone, anytime, any place.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that you don't want to be somebody's guru, and we don't need a guru, because we have what's in here. We don't need to go find some special person out here to follow.
Yeah, you're right. So it's all embedded in here. So you just need your attention in here. That's all. And everything else is a distraction. Because what's real is in here. And the last talk I did was about that separation, the big lie. It's because religion has you being separate from God, and God being everything and you being pretty much nothing. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. And that's why and religion has some good uses, I suppose. It keeps people off the street. And in some religions, put people on the street. It's just I don't want somebody to turn their back on religion because of what I said. I want them to examine their own situation in light of what their own soul is telling them, not what I'm telling them or what anybody else is telling them. So that's why I don't do, that's why I use this form of now this is the first time I've had somebody ask me questions, except when now Terrence Lamont has a thing, the fourth Friday night of every month, he'll have a peace talk, and it's just people talking about their experiences of peace. And I haven't participated for a while, but I did for like a year and a half. And because I appreciated what Terrence was doing, and I liked that, and I've had those kind of discussion groups there. But this is the first time I've done anything like this, where somebody's asking me questions specifically. Other than that, I just go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, sometimes you'll see in churches, like, they'll be like, well, the heart is deceitful and you can't understand certain things with your mind. So you need our church or our special teacher or leader or whatever to tell you what things mean and how to do this and how to do that and connect to God and all these different things, because you can't do it by yourself. You can't do it in your mind. You can't do it with your heart. You need us.
Yeah.
I've seen that
Well,
a lot.
that's that dependency, and that's how the church remained in control of you. Because if you knew the truth, you wouldn't need them, and that's they couldn't allow that. So then it started. I think at least a part of the history is the time of Constantinople. A bunch of key leaders got together and they decided what was going to stay in the Bible and what would stay out. So conveniently, from the time Jesus was 12 till he was 30, there's nothing in the Bible about that. And I've come across some videos from some very knowledgeable people who all tell the same story. It was taken out so the church could maintain control. But you just said it. You don't need an intermediary. The only one you need is your own soul, which is your guide and my guide. But it's my guide is guiding me. Your guide will guide you. And it may take us different places, but it'll take you where you need to go. It takes me where I need to go. And so I'm in the process of now downloading information that I'll need to approach the fourth major life cycle, which is going to be the most important. So I spend a lot of time just being still. My job is to be still so that I can hear this communication. Because as long as I'm chattering and I'm distracted, I can't hear none of it. And I've got so much out of hearing it. It's exciting to me to be able to pull something forward from a previous lifetime that I know I didn't learn this lifetime. That's just already there. And everybody's got that. Because this is not the first go around for anybody.
Well, I guess that can kind of give you peace too, because it'd be like, well, I've spent so much of my life and I haven't learned that much. Well, it really doesn't matter anyway, because it's like, well, if it takes you 100 lifetimes or more, as long as you get it. I mean, we'd like to get there quicker, but in a sense, it doesn't matter almost. Just get there when you get there and focus. Right?
That's a question I don't have an answer for, is why. In fact, during my 20s, I wrestled with this a lot, because I said, well, because all these questions kept coming to me. For a while, I just wanted to get out from under it. I said, why can't I just be left alone and go make money and spend money and have fun like everybody else? Oh, boy, and not be bothered by any of this crap. But it was not to be. And the reason I finally understood It was always true, but I finally understood it, that before I got into this body, I made a commitment to accomplish certain things this lifetime. And here at 82, I am approaching that. Where most people are just sitting in a rocking chair and hanging it up, I'm just getting started.
Mm-hmm.
But I needed the School of Metaphysics to help me see how to get prepared. And I needed all the experience. One thing about experience, in fact, one of my talks is about experience. It is your experience is the only way you can see truth. It's the only way you can know truth. You can hear it, you can read it, but until you see it in your own experience, you don't know. This is what Jesus introduced, taking believing into knowing. And that's another talk I did, going from believing into knowing. School of Metaphysics showed me how to do that. And church didn't do it. School didn't do it. It was the effort I put into myself that did it. But from the instruction I got from the School of Metaphysics, I can't leave that out, because I didn't know how to do it until I got to the School of Metaphysics. I had found out a few things. For instance, when I first got out of high school, you mentioned prayer. I'd heard people praying all the time growing up. But I said, if I'm going to use it, I need to understand how and why it works. So I implemented an intention. I didn't know that's what I was doing, but that's what I was doing. I implemented an intention that I would know. It took 5 years. And I found it in a book called The Hidden Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy from the University of India. And he explained the way that I could understand it, that all your prayers are answered through the subconscious mind. And rather than just accept what he said is truth, it felt like truth. But I was working for a company. I was living in Texarkana, Texas. My wife was pregnant at the time. Was the third child. No, second child. And my company transferred me to Springfield, Missouri. And it took us 6 months to sell our house that we bought in Texarkana, Texas. So I was afraid to buy another one. This was in the 70s, or early 70s. So a proof of how prayer worked is that I only looked at one house before I rented a house. And it was the correct one. The guy that I rented the house from, he was the warden of a prison in Springfield, Missouri, and he was transferring to Texarkana to the prison there. He had his own airplane. One weekend, he flew my wife and kid up to visit, took them back. When we moved, we used the same U-Haul truck. When he unloaded his stuff in Texarkana from Springfield, went right over and loaded up my household stuff, my wife and everything, and drove it back. Used the same truck. And I only looked at one out. This removed the answer to a prayer. It took it out of coincidence. Because this was solid. This was real stuff. And so that was the beginning of me actually using what I'd learned from this book on the subconscious mind. And I've been building on it ever since. But this was before I got to the School of Metaphysics. good while before. But I understood how prayer works through experience, not through what I heard at church. That was, I had some pretty valuable lessons leading up to the School of Metaphysics, but when I hit the School of Metaphysics, they just began a tenfold. It was amazing to me. And so there was no doubt. I remember the first night in class at School of Metaphysics. Now, I didn't, to my awareness, I'd never heard the word metaphysics until I was at the School of Metaphysics. But that first night in class, I'm thinking that these people are speaking my language. And that hadn't happened up to this point. Through a book, through people, nobody had verbalized the thoughts I was having. It's like I was the odd man out. And now I'm still the odd man out, and I'm liking it now. I feel good about it. But, and I would caution people to beware of the consensus of opinion, because it's your opinion that counts. That's the only one. That's the one that matters. And when you're working with your own soul, I know you're going to get somewhere, because that's the way it's working with me. And that's my experience telling me what the truth is.
And so you have a YouTube channel, right?
Yes. It's called YouTube at The Next Step, Winston Cunningham. I can send you a link.
Okay.
Yeah, I can send you a link.
Sure.
Or, but it's, and also, Terrence Lamont actually started the Facebook page, We Are Valuable Media, back in 2012, he said. And he invited me to speak on this, and that's why I got started. And the reason I started YouTube is because Facebook started taking them down after a month. So I had to, and I had a bunch, and I lost a few and had to redo a few. But I like the YouTube setup, and it's working for me. And I don't know where things will go from here. I don't need to know, because, as I say, we're on a mission, and we get information on a need-to-know basis. I don't need what I need to know. My own soul will feed me as I need to know. And I know that, so I relax about it.
So is there like one final word you'd like to leave with the audience before we close out?
With the what? Oh, audience. Okay.
Is there like one final word you'd like to leave? Yeah.
Be still and know. Be still and know. Your job is to be still and listen in here. Listen to your own soul. A lot of people hear the voice and they think it's God. No, it's your own soul talking.
Yeah, see, I had that in meditation too. Because it's like the first few years I'd hear, and it sounded kind of like it was outside. And you think, okay, well, God talks to me while I meditate. But then at some point, it's like it stopped being outside, like distant, and it was just sort of me. And I started realizing it's the same voice, but it's all within here to begin with.
Now, what was happening is your hearing was improving.
Mm-hmm.
You let go of a lot more distraction so that you could hear more of what's in here. That's what was happening. And that's what will happen for anybody that chooses to look in here.
Mm-hmm.
So do you do this a lot?
I try to put out one a week.
Oh, really? So. Okay. Well, I'm honored.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being on today. It was a pleasure to have you.
Well, pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be anywhere.